So I've built a photo gallery portfolio website in Python Django, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out, but it's a little bit unusual. Unlike most image-based websites, I haven't uploaded any images to the site at all. Everything you see here is being pulled out of the Flickr API in, well, not quite real time, initially in real time and then via cache. But I just wanted to show a little bit of the architecture. The general layout is a pretty standard. You've got albums with a non-rectilinear grid layout and image detail views, and each image detail view links to its original home at Flickr. Date taken, a few things, but let's take a little bit of a look behind the scenes. Well, let me show you how it works first. So if there's a new image that I want to add to my gallery, I just grab its Flickr ID, and if I go here on the back end and go images add, paste in an ID, I'm going to put this one in still life, hit save. Upon save, if the API data doesn't exist yet, it's going to reach out via Flickr's API, grab the entire API response, and save it into a JSON field. There's tons of data in here, way more than I need, but the nice thing is, because there's so much data, if I want to do anything else with this site or these images in the future, I can do that without having to reach out and grab the data again. Now, Flickr's API is very fast. I didn't actually have to do this for performance. I could have done it in true real time, but because we have grid layouts, there are places where we're doing it, 20, 30 times per page, and that would slow things down, and I could get rate limited or whatever. So this vastly reduces the number of API calls we make to Flickr. A few interesting things in here. There's the image ID, which we already put in. There's the server farm that it's living on. If I search for server here, so we're going to need this to construct the URL that is for the image that's embedded, and we're going to need a secret. There are two secrets here. There's original secret and this one here. For historical reasons, you need this secret for images 1200 pixels wide and lower, and this secret for larger images. They're not true secrets. They're semi-public secrets, so not a big deal that you're seeing this. So once I have done that, instantaneously, if we look back on the site, I put that in still life, we see that the gardening shed is here and it has inserted itself. These are ordered by date taken. I initially had a technique for ordering them manually, and that code is still there, but I decided I liked ordering by date taken as well. Computing the previous and next IDs is kind of interesting because this is, in order to achieve this non-rectilinear grid layout, let's look at one that's more dramatic, maybe in people, I believe. So you can see the crop sizes are different. So we're not generating a standard table, right? You can't get a layout like this with a table. In order to get a layout like this, you need to put your images into lists of divs full of columns, a div full of divs that represent columns. So the ordering in column 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In column 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you're navigating horizontally, you want to see wetting and then underwater. And this version, that's their weird thing, but you get the idea. So then, you want to see then 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on. So in order to do that, in the view code, we are using Python's itertools.cycle function. So I create a list of empty lists and then put that list into the cycle itertools tool. And then I operate through my query set of ordered images. And basically for each one, we're going to put it in a different bucket. So I end up with exactly the layout you see here, and then use just a little bit of custom CSS that they provide. And we end up with this. So what else do I want to show you about this? Right, so constructing that URL. So in the models, by the way, this is a really simple Django app. It's just one app with 3 models. There's a image model, an album model, and a simple page model that I use to store Markdown for writing the text-based content on the site, and that can be edited without editing code. So on the model, we've got our standard fields and then a few of the interesting model methods. And each of these, once we have a handle on an image, we can do image.get API image data, image.refresh, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how those work. This is where the API call is made. And this is really all the API interaction I'm doing is through a Python library called Flickr API. I pass in my key and secret, which I had to generate on their API developer tools. Notice I do not save it. So this is all being triggered from the save method on the model. Refetch is if I have changed something at Flickr and I want a new copy of the stored API data, which is called image.refresh. It sets the album ordering, which again I'm not using. This is a little bit of a unique thing, the self.taken stuff. So the date that comes in as text, I want to store it as a real date time object in the admin so that I can do the date-based ordering. So if we look at any of these images, the string-based date gets converted to a real date time object so that I can do all of the date-based filtering and ordering, etc. After this is done on the initial call to the image in the template, we're wrapping it in the Django's template-based cache layer. And I have Redis set up so the actual image data is stored in Redis. And that is why, on top of it being performant to begin with, these views are ultra fast because they're being pulled out of Redis in real time. So everything's virtually instantaneous. And again, reducing the number of API calls that I make to Flickr. Get page data is just a helper function, just because the data that I need is nested in various subdictionaries of the API response, and this helps me just get a handy little dictionary I can access in the template more simply. Get embed URL. This is where it's interesting. The structure of an image on Flickr that can be called from another website is this live.staticflickr.com/server. I showed you where that is in the API response. Self.flickr ID, the original secret I showed, and then this thing says size. So this size is going to be a letter of the alphabet, and it is referring to a table that Flickr maintains here. And there's a different letter of the alphabet for different image sizes and crop ratios and things like that. So we can use exactly this, one API call, and then construct the URL with the server, the ID, the secret, and a size, and we get back exactly the image we need that's ready for being embedded into an image tag. Get previous next IDs. So I showed you the navigation. So for this given image, I'm basically just finding within this album what's the next lowest date taken and the next highest date taken. So each image comes with its previous and next image IDs already in it, and those are just linked to the these little arrows here. This is the bootstrap carousel. The save method just says, do you have an ID yet? If not, then you haven't been saved before, and call self.refresh. There's super simple page model that I'm using for writing markdown for the text stuff. The cycling columns I showed. There is also just a utility function that's wrapped in a management command that I can use to flush the Redis cache for everything at once if I want to, just use the nuclear option. So if something changes at Flickr, so if we're looking at this gardening shed and I want to put a caption on it, and I say, amazing shed, and then I look back at, let's see, that was in still lifes. It doesn't show, right? Because we're relying on our stored API data. But if then I click refresh, there it is. So little helper utilities to do things like that. And then the last thing I wanted to show is the fact that we have, so the question is, what gets embedded into social media when somebody takes one of my URLs and pastes it into, say, Facebook or Slack or whatever. So there is a set of meta tags called OG image. You can see those here. And this has a size limit. So I needed to call a smaller image from the API in order to embed in social media. I want to make sure it gets the right URL linking back to it and the content. And then additionally, what about on an album view? So here's like the question is which image should be used? Well, remember on the home page, each album has a key image that's associated with it. So if I'm looking at the nature album, the key image is this thicket. And if I look in the source at the OG image, the image that gets used is that same one, a slightly smaller version of it. There it is. And the end result is if I take this URL and I paste it into, say, Slack, that's the image that gets embedded on social media. So that's all there is to show. This is all put together as an open source package on GitHub. It's called Tangelo. I am not supporting anybody using this. This is not for the average photographer. This is not for the average Flickr user. It is for Python Django developers who also use Flickr, and I know that's a very, very small audience. But if you want to contribute code or contact me, feel free, but I will not support you getting your site set up because deploying Django projects is not trivial. Okay, that's all I wanted to show. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.